Welcome to the Business at the Speed of Sell podcast, where you learn how to accelerate the growth of your online and offline businesses, profits, and personal income. Tune in daily to get the tips, tricks, and tactics that have generated over $100 million in online and offline sales. Now, here's your host, Anthony Flatt.
I'm Anthony Flatt, and you're listening to the Business at the Speed of Sell podcast. Today I want to talk about leadership and what I call the upside down pyramid. Now, I know a lot of people initially think about leadership as, the manager at the office or the owner of the company, and, they're the leaders. They're the leaders of the company. They're the leaders of the group. But that's not necessarily leadership. Management is not necessarily leadership. And I think there's a misconception that somehow that leaders are there to dictate down to those that work for them, those that report to them, and that's leadership. You've got somebody at the top of the pyramid giving orders to the next layer, and then the next layer give orders to the next layer, and that's leadership. And in reality, that's the exact opposite practically. If you think of a true leader, somebody who's a leader at work or a leader in the community or a leader in their field, they're usually somebody who is serving their group, their community, their field, their company, and they're the ones that are providing the value to everybody. And so it really becomes an upside down pyramid where you have the leader at the bottom tip of the pyramid, and that leader is serving, everybody above them rather than being the person who's managing everybody below them. And we don't see that today. I think corporate America really focuses on this management style where I dictate down to you what it is you're supposed to be doing. And then, you carry that to the people that report to you and so forth. And so we get used to this idea that, a leader is somebody who just tells people what to do, dictates out to everybody how things are going to be. And in reality, I think you really need to be serving people. And that's really the leader is the person who, they may say lead by example. I think that's one part of it. But you get out there and you help serve somebody. You're part of your organization, be it a nonprofit, a community thing, work, your own small business, your own interests, be it sports. The leader is really the person who's serving the greater good, the greater community. And the leader is usually the person that, is the first one there and the last one to leave and does the heavy lifting and does all of that. And you find that those are the people that are there the longest, work the hardest, and put in the most hours. And I kind of learned that when I first really got involved in a leadership role was within, Team Georgia USA Wrestling back going over 10 years ago. And I came from the corporate world. I came from managing projects and managing teams. And I assumed I was a leader and I assumed I knew how to lead. So immediately upon, having events and organizations, organized events that we were doing, I started delegating out to different people, all the responsibilities that they had to get these things done. And this is an all volunteer organization. And so I started telling everybody, okay, you do this part, you do this part, you do this part. And then what would happen is those things wouldn't get done. And then I would get back with that person and say, hey, what happened? You were supposed to have this done by this time and you didn't get this done. And they said, yeah, got busy at work, this, that, or the other. I'll get it done tomorrow. And then tomorrow came and went and they didn't get it done. I get back to them. I'm like, what's the deal? You still didn't get it done. Well, I got busy again. I'll get it done by, tomorrow. And then the next day they still don't get it done. And, I started to get frustrated and started really get agitated with the person. And so I basically said, hey man, what's the deal? Are you going to do this or not? And they basically said, no, I don't think I'm going to get it done. And then what do? Because now this person that was supposed to have done this activity, done this thing, they're not there. They just, I'm not going to do it. They're a volunteer. They can do it or not do it, and that's up to them. And it was a big learning curve for me to figure out, how can you delegate out responsibilities to volunteers and get them to do those things? And really, it comes down to leadership. It comes down to, what are you willing to do? What are you willing to put forth? Are you willing to walk a mile in their shoes? Are you willing to do that job first and then show somebody and teach somebody? And then in the reality, in today's day and age, especially with volunteering, with, kids' activities and sports and so forth, I just don't think we live in very much of a volunteer world as much as we used to. years ago, every family was involved in everything their kids did. They were involved in all their sports and all their after-school activities, and that's just not the reality today. I would say most families are not involved in their kids' sports or not that involved. Maybe they'll come to the games, but they never come to the practices. Maybe they come to 1 or 2 games a year, or they come to the championships if they make it that far. But traditionally, a lot of them are just driving by and dropping the kids off at practice and then going about their business. So we don't have that volunteer base to pull from. And so I've had to learn, and it took me a while, that, leadership is you doing the work, showing other people that you're willing to do the work, find other people like you that are also willing to do the work, and then giving them, the ability to do the parts of the job that they enjoy, that they're passionate about. And then if you can get a good group of people that are like that, and it's very difficult to do, lots of people will raise their hand and say, I'm going to do these things. But just like anything else, we keep maybe 1 in 20 volunteers that come out for something because once they realize that there's some real work involved, they go screaming into the woods and we never hear from them again. And when you get those volunteers that are very valuable, you need to protect them. You need to make sure that you're not burning them out. And it happens. This is probably something I never did a great job at, is once I found somebody that was capable and willing to do something, I continued to allow them to take on more and more responsibilities. And towards the last couple years, I've gotten to the point where I've started to tell people that you need to learn to say no, you need to step back, you need to not be Johnny on the spot and always be available, because some of these people are just taking advantage of you and having you do things that they could do, but since they know you're there and you will do them for them, they're letting you do those things. They're letting you come and do their jobs for them. And it's difficult to manage, the expectations, especially of a large group and a lot of people. But in the leadership role, what I tried to do is I tried to find out what people are passionate about. I tried to assess which people are going to deliver for me full time, which people are going to come through partially, and which people aren't going to come through at all, and then arrange my volunteers such that I had enough coverage. I would probably put, one person that I knew was going to show up and do the job onto a project, and then I would add, one of the people that I think that might show up for some of the time, but they're going to probably come late or leave early. And then I would add somebody who is raising their hand saying, I want to help, but I really am skeptical that they'll actually show up because they haven't showed up in the past. Maybe I put them on there. So I end up with 3 people on one task. And if it all works out, I would have 3 people show up, and I could have them all either sharing that task or maybe doing some other micro tasks so that I have that volunteer capability. But it doesn't usually work out that way. It almost always works out where I have one person that's there the whole time, and then I have one person that shows up for, some small percentage of the time. And it usually works out well enough because the person that's there the whole time needs a break to go do other things, or needs some assistance in setting up or tearing down or doing whatever they're doing. So that other person then adds to that. But you have to really manage that. You really have to manage your volunteers. And that's where I kind of learned, some of the leadership skills. And I've read all kinds of leadership books and, about doing praise and how to, show people appreciation, and that people will work harder for a kind word than they will for money. And I've just never really honestly been that kind of person. I've never really been the feelings on the outside type person. I jokingly tell people, if you need a hug, you probably need to find your mom or your grandma and get a hug from them, because I'm just not that guy. I'm the in the trenches guy. I'm the in the heat of the battle guy. And, I've gotten a little bit better with that. But for the most part, I just try to find people that are passionate about what it is they want to do and try to engage them in that activity in a way that they find, as fun as doing, work can be, and something that they enjoy and that they feel that they've accomplished something. And I do try to give credit to those folks. Matter of fact, I try to give credit to everybody other than myself. I don't care if everybody believes that everybody else did all of the work and that I did none of the work, even though I'm the guy behind the scenes, the puppeteer, if you will, making sure that everything gets set up and making sure that everybody's in the places that they're supposed to be in. And I think that's a key aspect of being a leader is you're there to help other people succeed and help them get the credit for succeeding. In coaching, oftentimes I like to tell my coaches that, if your team succeeds, they succeeded. And if they fail, you failed. And if you keep that perspective, that you give all the praise to the team and you take all the criticisms yourself, that will keep them moving forward and motivated. Now, obviously, you don't want to tell kids they did a great job when they didn't do a great job, but you also don't want to be, jumping and screaming on them and demoralizing them for not performing the level they need to. You as the coach needs to figure out a way to make them succeed at the level that they need to. You've obviously done something wrong or not done something you needed to do to prepare them to win, to prepare them to succeed. So take it upon yourself to figure that out. And the same thing with volunteers. If you're failing to get good volunteers, you need to figure that out. Now, I have a major difference of opinion with some people out there that believe that, there's only certain types of volunteers you need. You only need executive level volunteers. You need only people that live in the right houses and drive the right cars and have the right jobs to be volunteers. And, my best volunteers were the people that didn't have much going on, that didn't have a lot of material assets and didn't have the best jobs or live in the right neighborhoods, because they really needed something to believe in. They really needed something to invest their time in. They really needed somebody to take a chance on them and give them an opportunity to show what they're capable of. And that is obviously a challenge, because when you're dealing with people who aren't necessarily skilled at communication, are not necessarily skilled at office politics, or have not played a leadership role in the past, you're going to get all kinds of mishaps and irritations and challenges. But what I've found is I'll take all of the people who don't always say the right thing, don't always wear the right thing, don't always act the right way, that will work really, really hard. I'll take all of them over the person who dresses the right way, talks the right way, whatever, but never shows up to do anything, or only shows up to manage everybody else doing the work. I like to say that if we're all in the ditch digging the ditch, I want to work with the people that are elbow to elbow with me digging the ditch. I don't need somebody standing up on the street level above the ditch yelling down to us about, how we're not digging the ditch properly. And so my perspective has always been, I want people that are willing to roll up their sleeves and get involved. And that's usually the people who are not already very involved in other things, because if they were, they wouldn't be available. And then that's where your leadership comes in. You've got to teach them. You've got to find ways to harness their skills and capabilities, exploit their qualities, and downplay anything that they are not good at or anything that might be detrimental to the cause. And that's really where the leadership comes in. How do you make people really excel at the things that they're good at and downplay the things that they're not good at? And some of the things you just have to get over. Some of the things you have to just get past, that person didn't say something the right way, or maybe they yelled at somebody, or maybe they got out of line, or what have you. You've got to find ways to manage that and get through that, because there's so much value in people who want to provide their time and effort for your cause, but they don't know how. They never have. Nobody's ever asked them to be a volunteer before. Nobody's ever given them a leadership position before. And that's really the upside down pyramid. You serve those people, take care of those people, and they'll take care of you. And don't worry about the dictator. Don't worry about the person who wants to come in and run everything and, day one, give me the keys to the kingdom and I'll come in and make everything better. I've yet to find a single person ever that said, I'm not going to volunteer until you give me the title. I'm not going to step one foot forward until you make me the king. And then once I'm the king, once I have the title, then I will come in and I will just make everything perfect. It just doesn't happen. I don't know if that's an excuse that they use to make sure that you'll never call them on it, or if they really believe that they have to be the king before they can make anything happen. But, if you want to be the leader, then lead. Just get in there and start from the ground up and lead. If you want to be the dictator, I'm not sure that we need you.
If you have a question for Anthony, then head over to www.anthonyflatt.com and leave him a voicemail message for a chance to have your question featured on the show. Thanks for listening to the Business at the Speed of Sell podcast at www.businessatthespeedofsell.com.